Tertullian's Apology, a review. I have been reading Tertullian's Apology for the last 3 months. To be fair, the book is not that long. It really shouldn't have taken me 3 months to read, but the importance of this work is substantial, and it did contain a lot of quality information about early Christianity. Tertullian, who lived from 150 to 222 AD, wrote his apology after the Roman persecutions of Nero, who ruled from 54 to 68, and Domitian, who ruled from 81 to 96, and he himself lived during the persecutions of Marcus Aurelius, who ruled from 151 to 180. He is also writing after the Roman-Jewish Wars, which included the destruction of the Second Temple in Jerusalem and the exile, expulsion, or diaspora of the Jews under Vespasian and Titus. That would be from 69 to 79 and from 79 to 81, all of which shaped his perspective on history. His apology serves as a valuable guide for Christian subversion and resistance. Many people misunderstand what it means to be a bold Christian, and there are controversies today where Tertullian's advice would be well taken. I worry that due to later life decisions in his faith journey, such as joining or at least supporting the Carthaginian North African Montanists, a claim historians dispute as dubious, people are not seeking Tertullian's guidance. But that does not mean that his advice is wholly wrong or erroneous. Tertullian is considered the father of apologetics, as well as the father of Latin theology. His direct line of intellectual successors show a great pedigree in his thought through the questions he raised. Saint Cyprian and then Saint Agustine being two luminaries of that lineage. Tertullian also impacted Jerome, who would be influenced by both Tertullian and Origen, both of whom could be argued as either coining or outlining the term Trinity, long before the councils got around to officially adopting and defining the term. Tertullian's work is highly sarcastic and at times caustic. He is not focused on simple apologetics. He includes polemics and inflammatory language, but he does so with great wit and sly humor, unlike many apologists today. I believe that many individuals attempting to blend polemics and apologetics with evangelical outreach could benefit from studying Tertullian's apology. Tertullian begins his argument by explaining that Christians are not the monsters, incestuous baby killers, cannibals, or blasphemers that the Romans consider them to be. He clarifies that Christian rituals are simply misunderstood, whether it's communion, mass, or mixed gender prayer groups. He then proceeds to clarify that Christianity is not the worship of multiple new gods, nor is it the denial of any real God. He supports this by pointing out that most figures in the Roman pantheon were once human, and if they are deceased mortals, they cannot be considered true gods. He explains how idols are merely the work of human hands, and questions how one can worship objects whose physical material were once wash basins or toilets, but now take the form of gods or idols. Additionally, he argues that other false gods are either demons or simply imaginary, and he highlights how the themes of the Bible align with the positive concepts found in both Roman and Greek philosophy. Tertullian then acknowledges the contributions of figures such as Plato and Socrates, while denying them the status of Christians, as in his opinion, philosophy alone, that is, without Christ Jesus, is flawed and eventually fails its adherents, even its founders, although he does hint or possibly imply of his accepting the idea of pre-Christians, that is, those who were as close to being Christian as possible before Christ's revelation, the good news. But he does not elaborate on their positives, but highlights their errors, as minimal or grand as they might be. He concludes by defining Christian boldness as radical submission to the law, while steadfastly refusing to deny the one true God of the Trinity, regardless of the circumstances, coining the now famous retort that Christian blood is seed, which gains new converts to the faith. That those who witness such cruelties become curious about what faith could bring about the refusal of words which would end such suffering. Thus guarantee that more become willing witnesses, which is martyrs to the faith, in a clever display of wordplay on Tertullian's behalf. This boldness includes loving even those who torture or kill Christians, instead praying for their conversion, even if they should violate the individual person or pimp them out, and all the while never denying God, regardless of the severity of the torture. He provides examples of martyrs who were willing to undergo extreme suffering rather than renounce their faith. He mentions the slurs that Christians are subjected to, and how we fellow Christians wear those slurs with honor. He mentions those who were burned, crushed, or hammered to death, who asked for more when their torturers tired. He even mentions one addict harlot who, when the torture got too severe for her to bear, bit off her own tongue and spat it out after declaring that they would never have the satisfaction of hearing her speak those words. In his closing remarks, Tertullian exhorts readers to remain faithful to the Lord, to love one another, and to be courageous. He emphasizes the transformative power of faith, stating, "Darkness in due turn departs and follows on again, and the dead stars come to life. Seasons, when they end, begin anew. Crops are matured and returned. Assuredly, the seed must be wasted and dissolved to grow more fruitfully. Everything is saved by being lost. Everything is refashioned out of death." He includes in his conclusion a cautioning against persecution, explaining how it can elevate the persecuted to hero status and attract sympathy for those persecuted. This argument resonates particularly well in contemporary discussions, such as regarding the treatment of the LGBTQ community. Tertullian asserts that persecution ultimately creates a rivalry between God's ways and human ways, with a warning that the persecuted are often ultimately acquitted by God in his divine justice, rewarding the victims with heaven, despite condemnation by mere human justice, which is flawed and has led many of the wielders of its cruelty to the gates of hell. In conclusion, Tertullian's Apology is a valuable and necessary read for any Christian. While it may not be the best book in the world, nor the pinnacle of apologetics, it provides a solid framework for engaging in apologetic discourse. I am grateful for having read this book and would rate it a 7 out of 10. I recommend it to everyone with the understanding that it does not provide a definitive argument for Christianity as a faith. This early work in apologetics is considered by some to be the first of its kind and is worth the read simply for that fact alone, as we should read where apologetics began to understand where it is today. Thank you, and good night.